All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Wholesaling the Cool Way. And I'm Mark Cool, and this is my son Jasper Cool. We're both wholesalers, both working in North Carolina, but we have two separate businesses. And we get together on Sundays and talk about how business is going. And we just opened it up as a podcast so we could hopefully share some tips and experiences with people to help you in your wholesaling business, making deals and making money and achieving your goals. So normally we'll start off with some inspiration and education, whatever we've been listening to or watching or reading uh, that's helped us expand our mindset and improve our businesses. So you want to start off with that, Jasper?
Yeah, definitely. I was sharing offline, but I watched a good amount of basketball this week, and I was super inspired by the game I watched last night with the Lakers and the Warriors. Just because LeBron's like 40 and he's just dominating everyone still. That's super impressive for me. And they shared a stat. They shared two fun stats that I thought were really inspiring. One of them is that he's played against 10 father-son duos now. So he's played against 10 like fathers and sons in the NBA, which is insane.
Yeah.
And he's also played against 35% of the entire NBA ever. So 35% of all the players that have ever played, he's played against. So I just thought that was insane.
Yeah.
And obviously, we don't like when they throw those out, we don't have anyone else to compare it to. So maybe Michael Jordan or Kobe have also played against a high number of percentage, but I just thought that was really cool. And it was a great game. So it's fun to watch just two all-time greats go at it. And then it went down to double overtime. So it was a great game to watch. But that was inspiring for me. And then I was reading Patrick David's book still this week. I've been really enjoying that one called Choose Your Enemies Wisely. And so I've really been enjoying his book. I don't have any specific things that come to mind right now. I had them yesterday that I wanted to share, but I didn't write them down. So now I forgot. But that's been a great book, and it's basically like a business planning book. And so I'm almost to the end now, where he like walks you through step by step how to build your business plan, and he wants you to build it on like basically half logical and half emotional, because obviously you want to write down the KPIs and all the numbers and the logical things that you need to do to reach your goal, but then you also want to tie it to emotions, which is where the title comes in: How to Choose Your Enemies Wisely. Where you want to choose like, okay, who's going to drive me to achieve this goal? Who do I need to look out for? Who's going to like, who can I get inspiration from? Who can I learn from? Like all the emotional side of things. So where you can actually bring that back to your team too. Because he shared like all the great leaders, like when you look up to people like Steve Jobs or Elon Musk, like they're not getting up and showing you a PowerPoint like, okay, this is how we're going to grow Tesla this year. Like they're leading with emotion, and there's obviously logic behind it because they have all the data to back it up, but they're leading with emotion. And Steve Jobs' thing was always innovation, like we're going to change the world. And some of the employees might not have believed him, but they probably got fired, because all the people that were working with Apple back then when he was running it, they were totally bought in because he was that emotional leader who could really cast a vision. And so that's what he talks about, just having a blend of both things. And really good for me because I haven't read as many leadership books, and that's something I want to improve on. And so he also recommended a handful of books, specifically on becoming a better leader too. So I'm excited to check those out. But really, just inspired by how good the book has been so far, but also it talks about his achievements, and he's crushed. I've shared it before, I think, on this podcast, but he built his company from like nothing up to like 60,000 agents, and then he got acquired recently, like 2 years ago, for I don't know, like $300 million or something. And now he's building obviously another really successful company already, which is like more of a media entertainment business. And they're just crushing it with that. And he started like an app that I thought was super cool, and now he's in that stage where he's kind of like an Elon Musk, and obviously not as successful, but he can just put people in place to start all these different businesses, which I think is really cool, and what I aspire to be someday, where I can just like, instead of, because obviously we can't start 15 different businesses, but if we put the leader in place, okay, this is my idea, now can you go bring it to fruition? Okay, this is my idea for this, now can you go, like that's what he's doing. And so that's inspiring for me
Right.
to grow a business where I can have people doing that sort of thing for me. But yeah, I think that's it for me. Just those things.
Yeah, that's great. Great stuff from that book. I want to read that too.
Yeah.
I like him a lot too. Listen to him on podcasts and stuff. Well, thanks for checking in. I guess for inspiration for me, I've been reading Derek Sivers, which I mentioned at the last podcast. I've been reading the trilogy of books that he has. They're little thin books. You can probably read them in an hour or two. There's Hell Yeah or No, there's Anything You Want, and there's How to Live are the three titles. That's Derek Sivers, Sivers. But I just really love the way his writing makes me think and makes me look at things from different angles. Like he'll just have ideas, and I'll be like, "Oh yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way. I should, you know." But obviously, the core concept of one of the titles is Hell Yeah or No, and it's like I'll just elucidate that one is like if it's not a hell yes for me, it's a no. So practice saying no more. And a lot of teachers say no to a lot of stuff, but it's like going back to the emotion you just touched on, if I don't feel it in my body, like, oh yeah, this is definitely the right thing for me. This is great. This is going to lift me up. It's going to get me towards where I want to be in life. Then it's a no, right? And
Yeah.
the thing about saying no to more things is it creates more space in your life, so that when a hell yes does come along, you have the space in your life to recognize it. Whereas if you're saying yes to a bunch of mediocre or even less than mediocre things, then you're caught up following those paths and keeping those commitments, and you don't have time to see when the hell yes comes in. So he's got a lot of thinking like that I think is great. He makes me
Yeah.
really look at things from all angles, and I appreciate that. And then I'm hearing,
Yeah. I love those books.
yeah, they're great. I mean, those are we talk about books that you read once and books that you revisit every year or two. Like those are books to reread, right? The Derek Sivers books in a category with a few other books that I reread every year or two or three. But I'm here in San Juan, Puerto Rico. I've been here for a little less than a week. I was in Dorado for about 5 days. So that's inspiring for me, the beauty of the island and the ocean and the peace and I was saying to Jasper before we started recording, just here in San Juan, the beach is right here, and it's a really big, wide, sandy beach, and people are out there running and playing beach tennis and beach volleyball and spike ball and parasailing and surfing, and it's just cool to see all the fitness culture of people just really choosing a healthy, active lifestyle. That's inspiring. And today I was at the beach, and then I took one of those electric scooters home, and I just sort of tooled around the neighborhoods next to the beach, just going up and down and seeing all the different houses that people had built or renovated along the beach that are really nice, beautiful Spanish architecture, stucco homes with lots of cool features and foliage and plants, and just really inspiring to see people creating a beautiful life along the beach there. So probably similar to
Yeah.
Newport Beach or something, or San Diego where you were recently, Jasper. Just a lot of really cool homes right there along the beach, and a block or
Hmm.
two off the beach. So that's inspiring. And I was listening to a podcast on my walk to the beach this morning, and it's Ben Hardy on Tom Bilyeu talking about Ben Hardy's book about your future self. And that's interesting because it's a concept we've heard before, and Alex Hormozy talks about it. It's another guy we really like to follow, and it's kind of a Stoic thing too. Is like the Stoics say, like imagine your own death so that you can appreciate this moment more. And the concept that Alex Hormozy and Ben Hardy on this podcast like put forth is just like think of your future self 5 years or 10 years or 20 years in the future, and try and look back on the moment that you're in and bring some of that gravity to the moment, like something that
Hmm.
might feel really big or really stressful or really hard, or whatever. Like if you were your 20 year in the future self, what would you say to your current self? Or if you're 5 years in the future, and he was using the example of his kids, like Ben Hardy, who's the author who wrote the books with Dan Sullivan, How and Gap in the Gain and stuff, and he's written his own books obviously too. He was saying he has 6 kids, and he'll come home from work sometimes and it's chaos, and then he has to go like, hey, 10 years from now all these kids are going to be out of the house and I'm going to miss them. So like what would my 10-year from now self say to me right now, which is most likely, hey, my 3-year-old wants to play, sit down on the carpet and play with her, because
Yeah.
in 10 years she's going to be gone and this house is going to be really quiet. So things like
Yeah.
that. So that was a fun thing to just think about and reintroduce my brain to as an exercise. But yeah, that's all I got for now.
Awesome.
Yeah. So let's do
Sounds good.
some business check-in. Anything you want to share about your business this week, Jasper, as far as KPIs, key performance indicators, or deals that you've closed, or deals you've gotten under contract, or tools, anything like that you want to share for the week?
Yeah, definitely. I guess I'll start with KPIs. So for this week, we got one contract, sold one deal, did not close one this week. Yeah, I'm trying to wait for my Podio to load to share the leads and offers, but I think we put out 60 offers this week and got a good amount of leads this week. So that's the KPIs for, I guess, victories. I closing my second launch control account, and I'm transitioning those two people to cold callers.
Oh, wow.
Starting this coming week. So
Big
I'm
move.
excited about that because cold calling has been going really well so far since I switched back to it, and this will bring me up to 7 callers. So I think that's going to bring in a lot of good leads, and it's also going to be much cheaper because the launch control, paying for the most expensive one, I think it's like 4,000 a month or 3,000 a month, somewhere around there. I think it's 3,500. I think it's right in the middle. And so either way, so hiring these guys as cold callers will be much cheaper than that because I'm just paying their hourly rate, and then I'm paying $150 a month for the dialer as opposed to $3,500 a month plus their hourly rate. So that's immediately saved me like $3,000 a month.
Is that dialer
And
for
possibly
everybody, or is the dialer per person when you're saying that?
Yeah, it's $150 per person,
Okay.
but that's still $300 for two people rather than $3,500 for two people.
Yeah.
And so obviously I had no problem paying it when we were getting a bunch of leads and it was going well, but the leads have totally dropped off. So I'm just gonna put it on pause for now, and I still have the second launch control account, so I'll have one account now rather than two. And if it improves, then I'll double down on it again. But I'm excited to kind of change direction here and see how that goes in the next couple months. So yeah, I'm excited about that. And then another victory I had this week was that my bookkeeping company went ahead and reached out to all the people that we needed W-9s for and 1099s. They reached out to everybody, they got all their info, and they filed them for me, and it was all like behind the scenes. So that was really nice to not have to do that because I think that's something that I've needed to do the past couple of years. I just totally haven't because I didn't really know like what I needed to do. And thankfully this year they did it for me. So that was awesome.
So you didn't do any 1099s in previous years?
What's that?
You haven't done 1099s in previous years?
No, I don't think I. I didn't even really know that was a thing. So
Yeah, you're supposed to do it every year.
Yeah, so I'm sure I might get some flack for that in the future, but thankfully this year it's taken care of. So that was really nice. That was a victory. And then I feel like I had something else too. Oh yeah, I shared this offline. I'll share this briefly, but in the group that I joined, Matt Larson shared a new process for dispositions, and I followed it pretty much to a T this week on the deal that we sold, and it worked very well. Sold the deal for full asking price. I felt like I had more control over the deal than I felt in the past, and it felt like a very seamless process. Something I was nervous to do, but I don't want to not implement the stuff that he's teaching. I want to give it a shot. So I did, and it went well, and I think I'm going to do it going forward. So I'll just share briefly what I shared offline. But basically, the change that I made is no longer including the address in my email blasts. That's our primary form of marketing, and that's what he suggests, but I've already been doing it. So we blast out an email with our deals. As of now, we don't do a mass text with our deals, but I might do that in the future. But for now, just emails. And so up until now, I was sending it with the street address included, in the headline of the email pretty much. And so obviously, if you've been wholesaling for a while, you could see how that might pose some issues. But that's just the way I've been doing it. And he recommends to not do that, to include maybe the street name with no numbers, or you can just include the cross streets, the intersection, or sometimes he says he'll just include like the area, the neighborhood that it's in, and he won't even include, the street name, because I guess people could probably backtrack somehow on that too. But what I did is I included the street name with no numbers, and anyone who was interested, they had to reach out to me, ask me for the address, and then before giving them the address, I asked them for proof of funds. And just to kind of vet them, and all the real buyers that gave me an offer on the property, they gave me proof of funds within 10 minutes. And I found a few buyers that I don't think are real buyers who had issues with that and either ignored me or refused to give me proof of funds. And so those people have been removed, and that feels good because I feel like I'm filtering down my list to only the real serious buyers going forward. So
That's great.
Yeah, that felt like a victory all around. And like I said, we got to sell the deal for full asking price. Also kind of using what Matt teaches. And so yeah, that feels like a victory. And yeah, all good all around. So that was awesome. And then we got 2 deals cleared to close next week, and one of them was that deal in New Bern that was a bit of a challenge for me to sell. So I'm really excited about that.
That's great.
We signed seller docs this week. Yeah, so we signed seller docs this week, and hopefully we'll close on Tuesday. So that'll be nice to get that one sold and officially done. And then another deal that we've been having in escrow for a while is scheduled to close next week too. So hopefully end the month with 2 closings, which would be good. So there's that. And also I placed an order with Matt for another one of his virtual assistants, which is a cash buyer virtual assistant, which I actually hired in the past, but then I transitioned her away from that. And now I want to add more buyers to my list. So I'm bringing on another one hopefully next week. They're going to send me a couple of candidates for review on Monday, and then I can basically either approve them or not, and then hire them from there. They'll keep sending me people. So I'm excited to bring that person on. And their job is just going to be reaching out to buyers all day, every day, something that I don't have time for right now. And they're just going to be combing through all the free methods, so I'm just going to pay their hourly rate. And they're going to be combing through Zillow, combing through tax records, and combing through all the New Western buyers that I have set up as well. And they're just going to be reaching out to all these people and doing some vetting on them and then adding them to our list. So their target is they want the buyer or this person to add 10 per day. I think we're going to blow past that and probably add like 30 or 40 a day. And I think that's going to put a huge dent in our business because we've talked about it before on and offline. But I've sold, I don't have the exact number, but I've sold a lot of deals to New Western. Last year was probably over 20. And if you do the math, they're making at minimum $10,000 on every one of those deals. So that's an extra $200,000 that I can make from those deals. If I just source those buyers myself, they're paying top dollar because they're out there clearly because New Western is selling to them, but I don't have them on my list yet. So if this person can find me, 20 of those buyers that I can not sell to New Western and sell to those people, then just based off last year, that would be an extra $200,000 that we make this year. So that would be amazing for me, and that would pay for that VA for like 10 years. So
How do you find the New Western buyers though? Because they don't close on their properties.
Well, they do. So that's how you find them.
They actually close on the properties?
New Western double closes on every single deal.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, because you could I can assign a deal to you and then you can assign it to someone else, but they don't. They double close it. So we assign it to them and then they act as if they're a buyer, like we know they're not. But that's how they fool some people and they're not transparent with them. But they do close and then they resell to their buyer. I could break down the process, I guess, because we're trying to add value to these people. So it's really simple. But basically all you do is you go to the Register of Deeds, and I set this up in an afternoon on a weekend and hand it off to my VA, and now he does it every month. So that's been really nice. But basically all you do is you sort out all the counties that you like to work in, and you go to the Register of Deeds website for that county. You search up, so you have to actually have done a deal with New Western. So I'll preface it with that. You have to have either done a deal with them or know someone who has, because you need their entity name. So I know their entity name. They have 2 in North Carolina, and I can share those with you offline. But basically, you just go on the Register of Deeds, you plug in their entity name, you search it, and it'll show all the transactions that they've done, obviously. And then you just go on when they're the grantor, not the grantee. So when they're selling a property, and then you filter it by them being the grantor, their entity, and then you go all the grantees, take them down, search them up online, and find out who is the registered agent for that LLC, and then you just call them up. So, so far, I've been doing that myself very slowly, but now my buyer's list VA will be calling through those people every day. But the front side of the process, which is having all that data and compiling it, my virtual assistant has been doing, and we have a spreadsheet of hundreds in every county. So that's why I haven't been able to get to all of them, but that's the process. Essentially, that's all you have to do. So I just set up a spreadsheet where it says, my spreadsheet has the property address that they bought. So when you call them, you can refer back to it. Hey, I just saw you bought this property. It has their entity name. And then if he can find it, it has their name and their phone number attached. If not, then we'll do a skip trace. And then it has a link to their, we use bizopedia.com. It's a great website, but you can pay them $200 a year and they basically find 99% of the emails and phone numbers so that you don't have to skip trace them. So that's pretty much the process. But going forward, like I said, once I hire this buyer's list VA, I think we're going to be adding those people at a rapid pace. And then, like I said, my virtual assistant checks monthly because, checking every day would be a little bit redundant, but monthly, New Western does a lot of deals. So, you're adding at least 10 to 20 in every county in terms of new potential buyers from this strategy. So for anyone that's new or a veteran, I think it's a great strategy to add to your buyers list.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. So if anyone does find that useful though, and you want some more information, I could just send you the Loom video that I made for my virtual assistant. So feel free to comment down below, and we can link up, and I can send that to you. So
that's great. That's a great strategy for finding quality buyers.
Yeah. And funny enough, the buyer that I sold to this week was from that strategy, so it works.
Nice.
It does work. Yeah, and he was the one who paid my full asking. So
yeah, because it's a lot less than he's been getting with New Western.
Exactly. Yeah, and he's super easy to work with. Super good guy. We talked a while. He's expecting a baby next week. He's just a super nice guy. And I just told him, he was asking me, he was like, so what are your like fees and your like he was like what are your like qualifications or whatever for me to do this deal with you? And I was like, oh no, it's like super straightforward. You just pay our earnest money, you pay the closing costs, and that's pretty much it. And he was expecting a lot more, obviously, because they charge a lot of fees. So that would have been a good time to sneak in my $500 transaction fee, but I'll do it next time. But yeah, just to put a bow on it, to wrap that up, my second highest offer was at 107, and this guy came in at our asking price, which was 117. So that's right there in practice, what I just said.
Yeah,
which is $10,000, 10K extra on every deal. That's going to add up a lot, So if, like last year, I think we closed 65 or 66 deals. So that's 660,000. Imagine if I sold every deal for an additional 10,000, just that alone. So
even 5,000 is still 330K extra.
Yeah. So obviously it's not going to probably happen on every deal, but even if it happened on half of them, that would be a huge bonus. So I'm excited. To have some more buyers going forward. But I think that's about it for this week's victories. Challenges I came across two things this week that kind of posed a challenge for me that I wanted your feedback on. I'll try to make it brief. So one of them was pre-foreclosures. So my friend Farouk, who I told you he's actually coming out here next week, but he shared with me that he did a deal with two wholesalers last week, and he's a buyer, so he obviously sees the assignment fee. But he did a deal with one wholesaler last week. He did two deals with, and he said on each of the deals, I don't remember the exact amount, but on each of the deals, this wholesaler made over 100,000 each.
Oh my God!
On each, and both of these properties were in Durham. And so obviously that made me feel like a huge failure at first, but then I dug into it and I was like, how, like what's going on? And obviously he talked to him because he was amazed also, and so this guy's targeting pre-foreclosures and that's all he's doing. And I heard about this in CG on my first meeting when I went there. There was this dude who, that same thing, that's all he does is target pre-foreclosures, and his average deal size was 49,000. His average deal, not biggest deal, average deal was 49,000. And so of course I completely ignored it and I didn't do anything about it back then because I've tried it sometimes in the past, and tried is like not a very strong word because I didn't really stay consistent, because if you go to pull a list of pre-foreclosures, it's usually like 100 or 200 people, and it's like when we're doing mass marketing, it doesn't even put a dent. So I just kind of ignored those. But this guy in Durham, I don't know him, but that's all he's doing. And then this guy who's in CG, and there's Michael Frankie. That's pretty much all he does. And so I did some more digging, and I went back and watched his presentation from CG because I still had it. I had recorded it a while ago, and he broke down his process, and so I can share that with you offline. I don't want to make it too long, but basically that's all he does is he pulls pre-foreclosures direct from the county every day. He has his VA do that, and they upload them not into a dialer, but they upload them directly to their CRM as like new leads. And then they reach out to those people and they have, obviously a targeted approach different than other people because these people are on a tight time frame usually where they're actually about to be foreclosed on. And then he just reached out to them and he provides them with the 5 solutions, which I wrote down, which is number 1, reinstatement, number 2, loan mod, number 3, file bankruptcy, number 4, sell cash as is, and then number 5, subject to. So he breaks down those 5 options with these people, and he doesn't care if they go with him. Obviously, he just wants to provide value because usually when he does that, they do end up going with him. But that's his only strategy, and so that kind of put a light bulb in my head because number 1 is extremely cheap because all you have to do is pay your VA to scrub these people every week and plug them into your system. I think he said his cost per lead is like $6 or something crazy like that. And then number 2, he said that the profits on these deals are huge because obviously they're probably the highest motivated people that you can come across, because they have to get it done within a certain time frame.
Yeah.
And so his net profit margin on his business is like 90%, because all he has to do is pay for his team to call these people, like his acquisitions people, and then he has a transaction coordinator and stuff. But his marketing cost is just so low. So that was inspiring for me. I'm not gonna obviously abandon what I'm doing overnight, but I was just kind of thinking about like making a shift in my business. And then another thing that I heard about that I was going to ask you about was called REI Sift, and it was a similar thing, but not directly pre-foreclosures, but it was just like focusing 100% on niching your stuff down and doing exactly the opposite of what I've been doing, which is just calling lists that are like only a couple hundred people, but they might be super highly motivated rather than, doing the mass marketing that I've been doing. So I don't know, those both resonated with me because, as you know, it can become harder and harder to buy data when you've already bought data in the same county 10 times.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's kind of a long-winded way of asking for your advice, but I'm just thinking about making a shift possibly to one or both of those strategies. We're kind of focusing on niche stuff rather than mass marketing.
Yeah, it makes total sense. Yeah, and I feel your pain with it because we're doing more and more pulling lists. We have we closed deals in 17 counties last year, so we probably marketed to all those counties. But 17 counties gets kind of small when you're pulling the same list over and over and marketing the same counties, trying to get leads. And then you start to get some of the sellers who you think you put on your DNC list, but you hadn't, or whatever. So it's like, yeah, and you're talking to the same people. You're talking to people you've already made offers to, but you forgot that you made an offer. Like it can,
Yeah.
yeah. And I've done a little bit of looking at pre-foreclosures, but I haven't done much. We've had leads that people are in foreclosure, pre-foreclosure, and you know, um, it's definitely intriguing. But I don't know if I have any direct feedback about that. I think it's a great idea. I mean, it's something that we have to figure out because if we're going to stay in the same, we either need to go into other states, right, and keep expanding, and adding more
Yeah.
buyers and adding more markets, or we need to get deeper into the markets that we're in. So I think that's like, how do you get deeper into the market that you're in? And one way is creating niches. Like I was started off doing subject to, and now I haven't really been marketing for subject to. So maybe I need to get back to that. Maybe you need to do pre-foreclosure and really learn that. Like we talked about novation last week, like that's a different niche within a market. It's a different buyer pool because with novation, you can talk to people who want 80 to 90% of retail, on their property and do a deal with them. So I think that, yeah, it's like, and in our market in North Carolina, it's such a hot market that wholesalers are flooding in here, and even people who don't live in North Carolina are trying to wholesale from afar because it's a hot market. So us having different niche markets is going to help us compete better in the market than just trying to do the same thing we've been doing. It's like adaptation, right? We just have to keep adapting. Even like last year when SMS got cracked down on by the FCC, and the carriers the providers got really squirrely, and we had to adapt. So I think it's just another adaptation. And
Yeah.
And anybody can go on now to YouTube and learn about wholesaling and start, even if they're not doing deals and taking deals from us, they're still muddying the waters, which we've been experiencing the last 2 years. Also, it's like, so many people now are getting contacted by multiple people, and so they think their property's worth more than it is, and they've had offers that are not really even good offers because new people don't really know how to make an offer properly, and so then they think that their property is worth because so it's just like the waters have been muddied, and maybe getting into a niche where it takes a little bit more skill and a little bit more time to acquire the knowledge and the skills, is a good way for us to compete. So that's my feedback on that. I can't really give you specific or feedback on pre-foreclosure other than, the subject two I did like 3 years ago now, that was in pre-foreclosure, like he was in foreclosure. And we stopped that, and we had to deal with the bank and get a payoff amount, to get them to halt the foreclosure and, the whole thing. So it's definitely a process that's not that hard as long as, I think the banks would rather have their money than to foreclose and take pennies on the dollar on, a short sale or aftermarket sale. And the banks also are not supposed to be holding properties. They're not supposed to be having a big portfolio of properties, and they get dinged by their internal regulators about that. So if you can work with banks and find them a solution and get them all or most of their money, they're going to be happy. So it's just figuring out how to do that. And subject to a way to do that. And I guess you named 5 different strategies. Like you could pay off the bank completely and take over the property, right? Just buy it for cash, depending on what the loan amount is. And then you can step in. I guess there are a variety of different ways to do it, but I think it's a great avenue to pursue. And it's like you said, you can't just totally jump tracks and throw away everything that you've built, but we are going to have to adapt to continue to grow.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially when the market's changed and things aren't moving as quickly as they were, and interest rates are higher. It's affecting everything.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's definitely something I need to look into more.
Yeah,
figure out how to do
that whole niche topic up. That's a great topic.
Yeah, because like you said, it's more of a barrier to entry, which I think will lead to less competition and more profits. Because not everyone can just go buy a list of pre-foreclosures. I mean, you can, but the way this guy showed, he said it's more up to date when you pull it directly from the county. So that's why he has his virtual assistant do that every day. But yeah, I think that legwork up front, rather than just being able to click a button and buy the list, will lead to more or less competition, which is what he says. So
yeah, and also developing a skill that is not just an entry level skill. Like some of the skills you'll need to do those deals that are in pre-foreclosure will be skills you've already developed as a successful wholesaler. That might take time for other people. Just dealing with lenders and understanding real estate transactions and how deals work, et cetera.
Yeah. Cool. But yeah, I think that's it for me.
All right.
So
switch over. Do my business again. Well, I appreciate all the stuff you checked in about. Definitely brought a ton of value with the piece about the niche markets, and also the piece about the scraping for buyers from your wholesalers or bigger companies as a way to get quality buyers. That's a great tip and a ton of value. So yeah, as far as my stuff goes, I made a few notes here, so let me pull up this mastermind notes. Closed our first deal of January this week, so
nice.
It's like a victory, and it's more of a relief than a victory. It's like, third week in January, fourth week in January, we hadn't closed a deal yet in January or the New Year's.
Yeah.
We closed one. It was also like a very low profit deal. It wasn't like a big woohoo. It was just like, we got that one done. We had another deal that was supposed to close like Tuesday, and we had the buyer just delay, and it's just been one of those buyers that is disorganized, or he got to the bank one day at 4:30 or 4:40 and texted Derek and said, "Hey, I need the wiring information," which had been sent to him as email and previously and stuff. And so he's going to wire the money like at the 11th hour for the closing the next day. And then Derek couldn't find the wiring information. Derek's guy on my team, my brother, and so then the funds didn't get wired. So then he wired it 2 days later at 4:30 because I guess he couldn't get out of work and he couldn't do it the next day. And so then we got everything ready, and it's like, great, we're finally going to close this deal, which he had already postponed by 2 weeks from the original closing date. So And so then the attorney messaged us, I think on Friday, and said, "Oh, I just was looking through the documents to close this out, and something wasn't notarized in the buyers because it's an owner finance deal. So it was like the deed wasn't notarized properly, or the notary didn't sign their name or something. So now we're waiting until
Oh
next week
gosh.
to close this deal, and we have to, it's the buyer again that is really not responsive, and et cetera, et cetera. So um, it's one of those tricky ones. But that's an owner finance deal where it's
Yeah.
a good profit when we finally close it. But the point of that was I was checking in about closings. We were supposed to have 2 close this week, and that one fell out. And then we sold 2 this week, which is great. We got 3 contracts this week. The acquisitions team's been really crushing with contracts. A lot of that is follow-ups, and some of it is just getting contracts off of new SMS campaigns. I know we got one contract recently, Jasper, from some of the leads that you sent over. I don't know if I shared that with you.
Awesome.
Do you have a new contract from those
Yeah.
leads? So that's great. Jasper's been sharing his vacant land leads with us because he's just been focusing on houses, and we are still doing some vacant land in some houses. So anyway, hopefully we can JV that. And yeah, two sold, and then I guess that's the main KPIs that I wrote down. And I checked in about this deal with a slow buyer. So those are challenges. Victories is our text volume did go up, and we've been seeing more leads from text, but then launch control had another issue this week where our response rate dropped off a cliff, and I don't know what's going on there. It went from like 80% to 20% or something. And so then fortunately we've kept a backup SMS platform, Smarter Contacts. So we did do some stuff over there. And then, we got our follow-ups. We got direct mail leads came in this week, which is a victory. We had, I think, 10 or 12 direct mail leads come in this week off a campaign that we launched a few weeks ago. Mail's been a little bit slow to hit mailboxes and get responses, but we are getting some leads from that, which is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then challenges. I checked in about challenges. This slow and challenging buyer on this owner finance deal. We do have another deal, owner finance deal, set to close on Monday, and that one appears to have a very responsive buyer, and we should be closing down on time. And I think we have maybe one more we can close before the end of the month, and we might end up closing 4 deals if everything falls right in January, which would be nice, nice salvation of the month. But
Nice.
and we started a new policy doing preliminary title search on all of our deals that go through our post-contract review process. And we have a post-contract review where we just double check the property and, the deed, the topography of the property, check and make sure it's not in a flood zone if we didn't already check that. We have somebody call up about liens and assessments because those don't show up unless you call the county. And so we try and do like our preliminary stuff before we ask a lawyer for a title search. And now we're just asking lawyers to do a preliminary title search when we feel like we have a property that's solid and marketable before we put it on the market, because we've had a lot of issues with getting close to closing and the lawyer has not done a title search and they do it last minute. We have an issue, and then it's a big headache for everyone. And some of those deals have fallen out.
Yeah.
We're trying to end that process and that dynamic this year because it's disappointing for our team. It's a waste of time and money for our team. It's disappointing, annoying, and frustrating for sellers and buyers, and doesn't help our reputation with sellers or buyers when that kind of thing happens. So anyway, we're working on that. One of the things we've found is that some lawyers are super conservative about this, and some are more willing to do a little bit extra. So one of the attorneys, Jasper, that we've been working with, and we decided to put more deals with GEG, they're really conservative in their preliminary title search. They're very quick to write things off and say this is probably not a deal. And then we took a couple of them and asked different attorneys to do that, and we're like, oh yeah, we can get this done. It just means we have to pull this estate file or do that. So just as a tip for you, because I know you're doing a lot of deals with them, if it's not a really straightforward thing with the title, they might say it's not doable. Because it seems like maybe they have enough business. They just don't want to spend the time and energy to do, like, an example was we sent one to them and said, could you do preliminary title on this? And they were like, I've never seen a title being able to be pulled on a place that was bought out of foreclosure. And so I don't think we can do this. And then we sent it to another attorney and they said, oh, yeah, the foreclosure is more than 6 years old. And I've done these before. It'll just take this, and that. We'll probably be able to get it done. So just FYI, there's like some lawyers will be a little more trigger on what can and can't be done. So we're going to get a second opinion on some of these preliminary title searches just to be sure, because we've done some really difficult things as a team. My team just doing stuff, trying to get a deal done that I've had lawyers tell me can't be done. So I kind of have an idea what can and can't be done. So that was a challenge this week to go, why are we getting these preliminary title searches sent back to us? And then turned out a couple of them were actually closable, but that we just needed to go with a different attorney. But I'm glad we recognize it.
Yeah.
And then deal breakdown. I think I did a few notes on the deal that we closed this week, so I'll see if I can share that if that's helpful. We closed this deal in Cumberland County. It was vacant land, and it was 2 lots side by side, but I think that because of the size of them or whatever the floodplain nearby was, they were really only one building site. So we ended up selling them as one property. We were excited when we first got it because it was like, oh, great, we got 2 lots that we'll be able to sell for full price. But it ended up being only one buildable lot. And so I went back to the sellers to try and get price reduction, and they refused. They just were not willing to budge at all. So then we're like, okay, well, this isn't going to be a very great profit deal. So, but we already had some buyers interested, so we decided we would just sell it anyway and make a little bit of money. And then it turned into a thing where there was a title issue, and we actually canceled this at one point because the title issue seemed insurmountable, where there was some sort of quit claim deed that had not been executed by some company that was now defunct, and the owner of that company was deceased. So it was like, okay, we're never getting this done.
Oh gosh.
And then somehow we got in touch with somebody who's a descendant of the former owner of the company, and we were able to do it. So then we uncanceled it and sold it to the original buyer. But part of it was 66 days from the time we got the contract until we sold the contract the first time, because we had to figure out all this stuff about the property. And then it was another 65 days from the time we sold it until the time we closed it because of the titles issue and stuff like that. So it took us 144 days to close this from the time we got the contract. So that's what, 5 times, it's almost 5 months it took us, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't a big profit, so that's kind of like a slap in the face. but it was money coming in, and we made I guess the gold we can salvage out of it was that the buyer who ended up buying it seems like a really cool person and a builder, and she and her partner buy properties regularly and build on them in Cumberland. So I feel like we made a little bit of money.
Yeah.
And we added a good business partner to our list, so that's always a win. And yeah, so I just wanted to break that down a little bit. It was a prop stream list. It was a launch control SMS campaign, and the filters was actually local landowners. We tried a local because, as you alluded to earlier, we'd done all the out-of-state, out-of-county stuff. So we were like, oh, let's try a local list and see what we get. So I think it was the only contract we've ended up closing from the campaign so far, and that campaign was from 6 months ago. So there you have some of the nuts and bolts of a closed deal.
Nice.
Yeah, and I think that's all I've got the business check-in portion of things. Yeah,
nice.
That's all I got for now. And I was excited to get our Simply file set up so we file those memorandums of contract and not keep letting you to do it, Jasper.
All right.
We'll be filing more of those this year. But for anyone who wants to file memorandums of contract, we've talked about that prior on this podcast. But if you file a memorandum of contract, it can protect you against people trying to go around you and usurp your contract priority. It doesn't always work, we found, but sometimes, like I recently closed the deal and the attorney came to us and said, hey, we need you to release your memorandum so we can close this. So it happens sometimes. It doesn't.
Yeah.
I know for a fact one case where the person went around me and my memorandum didn't bother them at all. They just closed the deal and went another whole
Yeah.
around. So it works maybe 50% of the time, I think, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point of that was Simply File is a service where you can sign up for $150 or $200 a year, file your own memorandums. They're like $25 or $30 to file with the various counties. So you're at least giving yourself some insurance on some of these deals.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I guess it's time to wrap it up. I don't know if I have any quotes. I didn't curate any quotes, but I can probably pull something out. Oh, there was one on that podcast I listened to today. It was a good one. And it was Tom Billia was saying it was about goals and big goals, and like people fail to reach their big goals because they focus in on smaller goals that are attainable, right? Like, and this was a part of the future focus part. Like, if you've got to focus on the future you and what your life is going to look like and who you're going to be, and think about that some. And even if you don't see the direct path, the bigger goals are going to create more quality in your life. But if you just look at the goals that you know you can attain, then those are going to keep you from hitting your bigger goals, because you're going to focus your energy there, and you're just going to hit these smaller goals and never really hit your bigger goals.
Yeah.
So I might not have quoted the quote perfectly, but it was a cool concept that they mentioned. That like your smaller goals are keeping you from your bigger goals, or your inability to really see your big goals. Like, sometimes you can't always see the full path there, but you have to have faith. And that's what they were talking about too. Like, the faith and the hope are a big part of faith and the hope. And then faith and hope do infuse emotion into your goals. And that gets you to the point where you can find yourself a path to get there, even if it's not clearly laid out. But if you set clearly laid out things that you can easily define, you might never hit the bigger ones. So that's my
great point.
third wisdom. You got anything?
I like it.
Quotes or ideas or thoughts you want to share before we sign off?
I don't think so. I did have this. Actually, yeah, I did have this email from Taylor Allen this week that I saved because I liked it. And so he started the email with this quote by Bob Dylan, which says, "A man is a success if he gets up in the morning and goes to bed at night, and in between he does what he wants to do." And
one of my favorites.
I like that quote.
It's in my song.
Yeah, I like that quote. But what's that?
The song I wrote, Dreamtime, when I was a musician.
Mm-hmm.
It's the first line of the song.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, one of my favorites.
That's awesome. But I like the quote, but I like the discussion that he, because he writes an email. I get it a couple of times a week. But what he said after that is that he says, "What do you do if every day feels the same?" And the obvious answer is to do something different. But here's the less obvious answer: make sure you really, really like that day. So he goes on longer, but I just like that frame, because most people would say, if every day feels the same, what do you do? Well, you should change your day. But on the contrary, maybe you like your routine, and if you do, then you're doing the right thing already. So I thought that was cool, just to look at both sides of it.
Yeah.
But he goes on to say that he's obviously spent years and years and years optimizing his daily routine and you know his where he lives and his life and all this stuff. And where he said, like, right now he was writing that email, he was on a trip in Costa Rica, and he's like, "I've really had so much fun on this trip and all this stuff, but I can't wait to get back to my cold, snowy Toronto." He lives in Canada, so he's like, "I can't wait to get back to my home and get back in my routine." And just, you know, he likes the day and the life that he's created for himself. So that was just cool to look at both sides of it.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. Happiness is just stringing together one happy moment after another, and success is similar, right? Just one successful day, or one day that feels good after another.
yeah, that's right.
That's awesome.
So yeah, that's it for me.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
I guess we'll wrap it there. Those are some good ideas, and appreciate anybody who's listened to the end. I don't know how long we've been going on, but I don't see a timer on this thing. Been going on for 45 minutes or so. So thanks for hanging with us. If you've hung with us, let us know if there's anything you would like to hear more of, or if there's anything you've heard where you want more information on it. We're both here to help, and we're glad to share resources. And yeah, give us your feedback. Let us know. And thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Take care. Oh, I did it again.